So today I'm welcoming author James Gould-Bourn, who has written Keeping Mum, which is out from Trapeze today. It's his first book to be published. Hi, James. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you very much, Joanna. Very excited to be here.
You're very excited. You were just saying the sun's going down. It's the middle of the day here, so it's like
it is, yeah. I'm in Malaysia right now, so it's like, yeah, the sun's on its way down. So the day is coming to an end.
So what I've done is I've gathered some questions from various people who have been involved in one way or another on your writing journey towards publication of Keeping Mum. And I thought it'd just be nice, just to get some insight into the book and into you as well as the author. But before we kick off with the questions, would you like to tell us a little bit about the book?
Yes. Keeping Mum is the story of a boy called Will, and he hasn't spoken since the death of his mother in a car crash 14 months ago. And his father, he gets fired from his job, and he decides to maybe unwisely become a dancing panda bear in a local park. He figured, why not give it a go? He can't find another job, so he tries to do that instead. And his son hasn't spoken to him in all this time, and one day, Danny, our main protagonist, he sees Will walking through the park, getting bullied by some boys. He runs over, he saves his son, still dressed as the panda, and his son says thank you. And that's the first time that he's spoken in all that time. And that's basically the kind of the catalyst for the story. And Will, from that moment, sort of starts to visit the park and starts to talk to his dad, not knowing it's his dad, talking to the panda. And basically just sort of learning to come to terms with the grief and the loss of his mother. And through that process, Danny also learns to come to terms with it as well. And they learn to kind of to bond through that process and to overcome things together. So.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's really great hearing you talk about it, because obviously I read it for the first time ages ago, but it's just such a wonderful novel. So yeah, it's just really nice to have that recap. So if we go to the first question, which comes from Trapeze. Actually, you've just given us a brief rundown of the book, but she asked if you could pick 3 words to describe your book, what would they be?
3 words would be, I feel like it's not a descriptive word, but I feel like panda.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I think that plays a big role. So I think, panda. And I like to think funny, and a number of reviews have confirmed that. So
funny.
And then I think uplifting. I would say, because it is an uplifting. So it's a sad one, but it's.
You were talking about the grief a moment ago, but actually it's an incredibly life-affirming and an uplifting book. It has to be said.
Thank you very much. And it was important to get that sort of balance right, because I really enjoy both elements, but it's sometimes hard to know if you're trying to be too funny or trying to be too serious, and it's it can end up being very unbalanced if you're not careful.
Yeah, I think you've got the balance just right. So Therese, obviously she's our foreign rights director, and she's been selling Keeping Mum in translation around the world. It's been really fantastic to see it embraced across all cultures and nations. But in fact, the first, it's already been published in Germany by Kiwi, and it's been doing fantastically well there by all accounts, garnering Book of the Month, accolades, and picking up some really outstanding reviews. So Therese's key question really was, which country were you most surprised to get a deal in?
There was a few, I guess. I think one thing you don't really consider before you get published is the fact that sort of any other countries could be sort of just as excited or even more excited than maybe your whatever country you come from. I think you just think in terms of your own country, and you think, well, England will like it, and great, because I'm from England, and you don't really think outside those parameters. And then when other countries start to show an interest, it's really exciting, because I guess you just never considered that before. So, there's many countries like, we have Serbia, Bulgaria, there is like Hungary, all of these countries that I just never ever would have sort of imagined my book to be published in. It's kind of takes a bit of getting used to, really. I think because also it gets translated into these languages, and you can't obviously read that version, but the story, but it's still its own separate entity in a way. And it's just, it's quite an interesting experience. But it's been very exciting just to see these different countries that the book's going to be coming out.
And it's always really fascinating for us as well, because we always have great hopes for translation sales with all our books, but you never quite know what's going to take off, and you give everything its best shot, and it's always really interesting to see which countries come in and sort of embrace a novel. Anyway, it's great to see yours has been so widely embraced. So the next question comes from Cara, who is your American editor at Scrivener. And she's asked, are you a good dancer?
No. I am a terrible dancer.
I was just going to say, Therese did also ask, how do your dancing skills compare with Danny's?
Well, actually, I think they compare pretty well with Danny's at the beginning of the book. Not so much by the end, because I think Danny is a much better learner than I am. No. And it's so funny, because of all the things for me to even write a book about, I never in a million years would have thought it would be about dancing, because I'm so bad at dancing. And I'm so...
Really wish fulfillment going on there.
Maybe. But I think also there's actually something appealing about the idea of, if you could wear a suit while dancing, I think you would sort of, in a way, it makes it better, because no one really knows who's inside that suit, and you can completely lose all your inhibitions, and it doesn't matter because you're in a suit. Whereas, if people can kind of see it, it's like, oh no, but they know it's me, and they know how bad I am. So no, I'm really awful.
Brilliant. So the next question comes from your UK editor, who is Rachel at Trapeze. And obviously this is your debut novel, the first novel to get published. So there are a lot of firsts for you, first time of this, that, the other. And she has asked, was the editorial process what you expected?
That's a good question from an editor. I think the thing is, you don't really know what to expect from that process. And I think that when you're trying to get published and you're sort of, reading about other people's experiences, I think that's one part of the process that's so sort of subjective that you can't really sort of brace yourself for, because someone might have a great experience, someone might have a terrible experience, someone might be very receptive to editing, other people might not be. So it's very kind of, I didn't really have any expectations when I went into it, but it's definitely a bit of a learning curve, because you spend all this time kind of like writing this manuscript as great as you think it can be, first draft, second draft, third draft, and then you're like, right, this is it, this is the best I can make it. And then, obviously you give it to an editor, and an editor will come back and, they'll be like, well, maybe that's not working, or maybe change that, or maybe this, maybe that. And then that's quite, your instinct is sort of, but the book's fine. Like, I've spent all this time, like, and it's probably not the same for everybody. But I think that for me, there was that initial kind of jolt where it was kind of, it took a bit of getting used to, because for the first few days I was kind of sitting there thinking, but it doesn't need this, everything's okay like it is. And then like another few more days pass, and then you start thinking, actually, come to think of it, they might have a point. And then a little while after that, I was like, no, absolutely, like these suggestions will completely make the book a lot better. And they did. I look at the original draft now, and as still as much as I love it, I can definitely see where the gaps were, and where I could have kind of elaborated on things a little more, or gone, a bit more depth of character here, or just, yeah, so it was all excellent advice. And yeah, Katie in the UK and Cara in the US, they definitely helped to make the book a lot better.
Yeah.
And I think now I know what to expect. I think for my next book, I'm a lot less apprehensive about that process because I've sort of made peace with how it works.
Yeah. Okay, good. So the next question comes from our esteemed agency assistant, Nicole. She absolutely loved the book. She said she loved the father and son dynamic and what she's called the natural wittiness to your writing. And she has asked, what's been your favourite part in the lead up to publication?
Favorite part? It's a difficult one actually, because it's all quite exciting. Well, it's very exciting, really. Favorite part? It's like there's lots of favorite parts really, because it's a process. You know, like say for example, the first time that you get to see the front cover designs.
Yeah.
That's super exciting, because as a writer,
yeah, it's always one of my favorite bits. Yeah, when you get to see it just seems real, and it just seems so real.
yeah, exactly. And I think until then you kind of struggle to see it as this kind of finished entity, and then you sort of see a front cover, and yeah, it kind of ties it all together. And it's also fascinating to see how someone else has sort of like taken your book and you know how they've managed to put that into a visual, you know, because everyone has a different idea of what a book should look like. So yeah, that's a really exciting process. And another part of it is just when those kind of early reviews start coming in. That's great, because you just, it's I think for the past month, the book's been out in Germany for a month now, and I've probably Google translated like at least 95% of like every single review. Yeah, so to any reviewers out there, I probably have read your review, and I'm just glad. No, really. And it's
don't read their reviews, do they? But obviously you're
no.
Not.
Yeah, I've heard that you shouldn't really read your reviews, and I was absolutely like adamant that I wasn't going to do that. I was like, oh, you know, it doesn't, you know, it's so subjective that it's probably best just to not read them, because it's not going to be for everybody. Some people will love it, some people won't, but don't get involved. And then like as soon as it came out, I just kind of couldn't help it. And then because they've been so positive, then yeah, I think the day like someone gives me like a 1 star or something, I'll be like, I'm not reading anymore.
It's kind of interesting to see what someone has to say, even if it's 1 star and you totally disagree. It's passingly interesting, isn't it, for like 1 second? I think
that kind of morbid curiosity, like why, like really? But yeah, so that's been fun, and it's really great. Kind of, I don't know, just because I've kind of written the first book, obviously you still go through lots of those phases of doubt when you're trying to write your second book, you know, and it's like on those days where you're kind of feeling a little bit low and you read like a really positive review and it really boosts your spirits again, and it reminds you that actually, yeah, you know, you can do this because these people said so. And yeah, it's a really lovely part of the process.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so the next question comes from your partner Vanessa, and she has asked, what makes up your essential writing gear? I'm intrigued by this one.
Okay, so I have like kind of a bunch of essential writing gear, and yeah, good question, Vanessa. So first of all, as we've seen, my new addition to the essential writing gear is this panda that my wife made.
Made of cardboard.
This is cardboard.
Amazing.
Yeah, and this is 8 hours worth of work right here, and he sits here on my desk now watching me work. And as well as the panda, I also have, my wife recently painted, from the book, we have Milton the cat.
Yeah.
So she painted this, which is Milton like reading the book upside down. So that's kind of sat there right there. And I also have nothing to do with the book, but I have this frog who again silently watches me while I work. So those are like,
Is he judging
So
you?
they all are. They all are, really. Whenever I'm procrastinating, they're like, work harder. So that's my writing audience. And I also have two things that I literally can't live without as a writer. Well, actually three things, because air conditioning in Malaysia is absolutely crucial. But the other two things is noise cancelling headphones are, I can't live without noise cancelling headphones because I'm I'm hyper aware of sound, and it literally takes nothing at all to distract me. So I really need to put the headphones on. So I'll put these on right now, and I can barely hear you. It's fine. And then the other thing is, I have these glasses, right? And I don't usually wear glasses, but they help with the screen glare of staring at like a computer all day.
Yeah.
Sometimes red eyes and stuff. So literally every day, this is what I look like while I'm sat behind my.
I'm not going to be able to think of you in the same way from this moment onwards.
Serious, this is what I look like. So anybody who thinks that the writer's life is in any way sort of glamorous or suave, just think about that, because that's really what it looks
like. Dictating to someone lounging on a chaise longue, let's put it that way.
Yeah, seriously. So that's my essential writing gift.
Great question, Vanessa. I think as your wife asked a question, I've got my husband to ask a question as well, and his is simply, why a panda?
Why a panda? It's because like 8 years ago, I noticed in the Sunday Times magazine, I was at home at the time, and I was just sat there having my breakfast and flicking through the Sunday Times magazine, and in the middle they just kind of had a bunch of photographs. I think they did it every week, just kind of random photographs, and just one of them was this. It was, I don't even know who took it or where it was, but it was just like this kind of really grim looking sort of concrete park, and there was someone dressed up. It could have been a panda, or it could have been, I don't know, a rat or something, I don't know, but he was obviously there to sort of make money. He was a street performer, but it just looked like so sad. I was like, wow, like who's inside that costume, and what led him or her to be here? And that was literally the beginning of this whole story, because then I just couldn't stop thinking about it and thought, yeah, I want to know who this person is, and I want to know what their life is about. And so I think that also plays into the sort of running joke in the book, that no one really knows whether it's a panda or a rat or a badger or whatever, because it's
the running joke. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, that's why a panda.
Brilliant. It's amazing where writers get their inspiration from. And the penultimate question comes from one of your earliest readers, who is actually an author that our agency represents, Katie Marsh. She loved the book. She said it's fresh, it's very, very funny. She said it moves effortlessly from comedy to poignancy. It's a story of joy, of connection, and of the overwhelming resilience of the human spirit. And she said reading it made me want to dance. So she thought it was a gem of a book. And her question is, if you could take just one book to a desert island, which one would it be and why?
Yeah, that's a difficult one, isn't it? It's when someone says, like, what's your favorite film? It's like, I want to choose 10. But if I had to choose one, in fact, I have it up here. Here we go. So this is one of the only books that I own 2 copies of. And it is A Fraction of the Whole. It's probably backwards right now because it's on the camera, but A Fraction of the Whole by Steve Toltz.
Fantastic.
And it was shortlisted for the 2008 Man Booker Prize. And to describe this book is kind of impossible because there's so much going on inside it. It's like 710 pages, wow. Which is,
that's good.
The thing is, yeah, like, but I don't usually read long books. You see, that's the thing. Like, the moment I see like a book that's over like 400-ish pages, I'll start to kind of have second thoughts, because it takes me so long to read. Literally, I generally read a book in about 2 weeks. So then when I saw something like this, I thought, that's going to take me like a month. But I started reading, first couple of pages, and I instantly knew that this was an absolute masterpiece. And it's because it was the it's the funniest book I've ever read by far. Literally, like, there's comedy genius on nearly every page, which again is impressive given how long it is. But it was pretty profound for me because it was the first time that I realized that actually you could be taken seriously as a writer and write something funny at the same time. And I think there's a kind of conflict with those ideas that, you know, you're either serious or you're not. And it's like, the fact that it was shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize tells you that, you know, this is taken seriously, yet at the same time, it's hilarious. Right. And until I read this, I've been trying to write sort of psychological thrillers or dramas or literary fiction. And because, again, I thought you had to sort of, you know, write seriously to be taken seriously as a writer. And then I read this and I thought, you know what, like, I don't need to do that. Maybe I just need to write what I want to write and have fun with it.
Yes.
And that was literally the turning point for me. And so he's the reason, Steve Tolt is the reason why I started to write in the genre I did, because I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to have fun with this. I'm going to, you know, write funny stuff down and laugh at my own jokes and just kind of see what happens there. And it was the most enjoyable writing experience I've ever had.
And I think that really shows. It really shows in the novel as well that how much you've enjoyed it comes across. So the last question is from me, and one of the things I personally love about this novel is this fantastic cast of characters that you have, from Will's brilliant friend Mo to Ivan, the Ukrainian builder, to Crystal, the pole dancer, and even El Magnifico, who's a street performing magician. They're just fantastic. But do you have a favourite character, or is that just an impossible question to answer?
I mean, it's hard, isn't it? It's like when someone says, like, who's your favourite child? I guess.
Oh, exactly like that. Favourites aren't allowed.
It's like, even if you've got one, you shouldn't really say it, right?
Exactly. Being disloyal, yeah.
But I love them all in their own way. But I think maybe like El Magnifico. I think because he's such a pathetic character, and and I think we all know someone maybe a bit like that, and he's obviously not a goodie, but at the same time, he's just I can't hate him either. It's just I feel a bit sad for him.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, there's a real pain about him, I think.
Yeah, so I think probably El Magnifico, but I enjoy all of the characters.
Yeah, brilliant. So yeah, those were the questions. It's really been great to have all this insight into the book. As I say, it's out today, online and from all good bookshops, and hopefully the bookshops, at least in England, will be open next week. Keep our fingers crossed for that. But yes, congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's been a long journey, and it's very exciting to finally get published.
Fantastic.